so good to be back with you. Oh, wow. When you get here to watch the replay, please know how much good juju and energy I am sending your way. And I just want to say thank you for joining me this Friday, the 13th of October, to talk about weaving intentional inner webs. My cat Maximus is coming to join us, and I wanted, before we got started, I thought, while I ask you to give this video a little love, and if you'll play along as we go, I would very much appreciate it. And so I put in this little purple crown, and then I got my laurel crown that will go over it, because in the name of Laurelese, which is the language the people can lease of energy that we can use to actually playfully interact with one another innocently, and to see that intimately means into me you see. And so it is we who must stop trying to pierce others when they are only but reflections of us wanting to be loved, and know that they are seen. So as we round in this evening, get ourselves grounded in the space, have some vibrational harmonics and frequencies coming in with the feline energies, as the crown of Laurelese is in place, now we see that it is time to actually see what inner webs means to me, which is the acronym for individual needs necessitate emotional resilience, resonance, and respect. And then WEBS actually stands for your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-belief, and your sense of inner security. How safe do you feel inside of yourself is the question that we must ask ourselves as we enjoy our experience or try to get away from it, because the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fornicate mechanism within us kicks in, and then we say, okay, I got to get out of here. Something's got to change because I'm uncomfortable. So I need something different than this discomfort that I'm experiencing now. Wah! We often have the trigger because anything we didn't solve the first time has to show up in a future now moment to be resolved because we didn't solve it the first time. So with this being said, I do want to make sure that people know that I am live, and they are welcome to join me. If you are tuning in with me live, give this video some like, some love, and also send it to a friend that might be interested in being part of an experience where we journey inward together in shared space, and with training that will actually equip us to be our best selves in a way we've never known we could have before. But now we're actually the ones who are creating the rules. We've never known we could have before, but now we're actually the ones who are creating the rules. We didn't know. We're the ones who are setting the stage for what is possible. And so it is time for us to see that our emotions can either be tools that serve us or that hold us back, and it is completely up to us. Play with me in the comment section. That's where the BS of sex lies after all. got a cat on the other side of that wall. So that's where the BS of sex lies after all. Don't you see? It's time for us to become the ones we trust, to stand by and for ourselves. And so if you won't choose to be yourself, then what will you choose instead? That's the question that we've got to ask, babe. 'Cause if we don't hold ourselves up, we'll get knocked over by someone who just wants to feel good and use us to do so. We must know that is not the way we must go, and so now it's time for us to be the ones we've been waiting for. And wherever you saw this, please share with more people who would benefit from seeing me and Max and Max. Oh, my little friend. He's purring then. Okay, so we're 10 minutes into the hour. There's only 60 minutes in an hour, which means that I have used 1/6 of the time allotted to be together for this podcast today. And this little cat purring away is very much part of the frequency of this meeting today. So I wanted to ask you, what is your sense of understanding of self-worth, self-esteem, self-belief, and your sense of inner security? What do each of those mean to you and for you? I would ask you what you're going to do with them, but I want to just have you think for a moment the difference between having an intentional inner web compared to an unintentional one. So, what are healthy expressions of these inner webs? That's what we have to really start getting to the bottom of. And we have to see how to activate our own healing capacities. Now, what I know for sure is that I don't have all the answers, but I am connected to some really amazing people. And each of these people have keys and are keys because we are the hierarchies that have come onto the field of consciousness, that we have agreed to play by the rules of that which we allow to be the lid on what we believe possible, which is our self-image. So I want you to step into the position of being the magician of your own life, the magi that moved the E of energy of the image that you have of yourself and what you see into then be yin, the yang, and all of that without the fang. I'm just playing. Dang. Are you enjoying it? I hope you are. But seriously, each of these opportunities for us to weave the words that become webs that connect us, which were the dots that needed to be connected, for it was not the information that people needed access to. And believe me, when I was in my expanded state before I made the call that got me so much hate and locked away under the modern day witch hunt legalized and normalized as the Mental Health Act in 2019, after I called the police to report the system was corrupt and they were in on it, but there must be some good ones and I'm here to help bring peace to this world, so take me to your leaders and naturally we can solve this easily. Yeah, that was me in 2019 before I got locked away and experienced the craziest things that I had up to date, except for the things that I had experienced before I got on the flight back from Arizona to Toronto, were wild too. And so all of it led to what happened then when I essentially got checked into a hotel stay I couldn't get out of, and then medicated in order to demonstrate compliance and in order to buy my way out, because the professionals convinced the family that the individual is in need of isolation and retraining and reprogramming and diagnosis, of course, because when you have a diagnosis, you can die to the gnosis, which is the spiritual path that you individually would walk if you now have a professional designating which path you should take. What the fuck? Linda Islands? Just kidding. Anyway, I hope you're having fun and drifting with me and are enjoying the laurel, which was a birthday gift 3 days ago. I don't know whether it was today, specifically 4 years ago, that I was released from that insanity of Waterfall 1 in Hamilton, which was a good enough facility after I opted out of the fear and terror program that was set out at the beginning, it seemed. For if we are in a simulation type experience, then wouldn't it be reasonable to imagine that a place where you go for mental health issues becomes then the place where your mind is played on you? Yeah, it's wild. And I could share some stories, but that would be going down into the trauma of the experience that served as a descansos, where my soul surrendered my vessel easily because I didn't know that I needn't be dropping a knee under an act with professionals that may have read books about something like me, but never have they experienced the stallion that I represent as the reflection of you who is too within your own life. Of back when there was a farmer who had a herd of mares that roamed free by day and came back to the stable at night. Well, one night they came back with a beautiful stallion who walked right back into that closed gate with all of those he wished to mate with. And the farmer then, by law, had possession of said stallion. So he then took it upon himself to break him so that he would then conform and be more easily resold for profit to the farmer. So his son was notorious for training horses, wild ones especially, and so he was put to the task of breaking the spirit of the stallion, who at last bucked him off so hard he fractured his leg in many spaces and places. And so it was that I missed the part where, upon acquisition of said stallion, the people came to see the farmer and said, "My gosh, how lucky and fortunate you are." And he said, "Maybe." So then when he was bucked, his son was bucked off and broken, then they all came back and gave their condolences as to how unfortunate it was, in fact, in such a turn of events, and how sorry they were. And the farmer once again just said, "Maybe." Well, wouldn't you know, there was a war taking place in the country where this farmer and his son and community lived as one. So it wasn't until a couple days after the son had fractured his leg that the soldiers arrived in their village to round up the able-bodied men and boys to fight a war that would put weapons in their arms so that they could be we pawns in another man's war. And because that farmer's son was injured, he couldn't go. So all of the rest of the able-bodied men and boys got rounded up except for that father's son, because that farmer's son couldn't go. So that was when he was once again greeted with the opportunity for the people to come back and say, how lucky and fortunate and blessed he was for all of their loved ones had been rounded up and taken away with the conscription, while his son was still home with him. And the father once again said, maybe. So that story starts with the stallion that I remember being in the midst of the craziness saying to my mom and her husband that I was that stallion. And I'm not alone in that. The cat is chewing on a sweet and low. So I say, no, my friend. But why all of this is significant is because it has helped me develop a stronger web of inner worth, esteem, belief, and also inner security, the ability to feel safe because I know I have my own back. I know I can trust me to have my own back, and I know that if somebody asks me to be there for them, I will do my very best to be the best that I can for them. And I won't overcommit if I can't do it. And I also want to say that because of my ambition to bring together community, to offer trainings and opportunities for us to grow and become more whole, and to know the edge that someone else told us was as far as we could go is what knowledge is compared to wisdom which we lived. That knowledge became the edge. We said, okay, don't go that way, this one's better. And then others can follow suit where we went instead of just what we said we did. So we've got to go the way in order to grow the way. You grow the way to show the way. You go the way to show the way. Going and growing are synonymous if we actually break it down. So I wonder if anyone has any comments or questions while we're in here. I am grateful to be with you live. And then I want to also say that with these stronger inner webs and the descansos that mark where life as we knew it stopped, and then life as we'll know it or are knowing it now came into existence, and the collapse of our self-image that took place in that process, that liminality of being between worlds, between life as we knew it and life as it will be, that liminal phase of change between those worlds is a world in and of itself that must be respected and is part of the dark night of the soul, which I broke into 2 parts within my book, Fully Committed. And those 2 parts were the dark night with the K of the ego that started when we get stripped of the identities of the external labels, roles, titles, statuses, personages, ways of identifying us as that which is other than we are in our wholeness, yet aspects of us we identify with then become the markers for the whole identity, which is the problem, because of how it invites an entity in with that identity. You see? With the inner eye that would bring ye back into the moment where all of our power to create actually exists, which is the present moment. Then we see the ment in the moment, and we see the momentum of compounded energy when we are willing to resolve the emotions that are the energies in motion that reside within us when we don't deal with them the first time. Then we'll have to resolve them another time. So all of this is a way for us to see that if we shift from the collapse that comes when the identity is released. Maximus, he's a whiny cat, a talkative cat. My uncle corrected me and rightly said yes. He's just one that likes to communicate. He is around and he's coming in for some affection. So, with all of this, having been shared so far, the descansos of the dark night of the ego leads then to the dark light of the soul, which is where we fight between the fearful and faithful parts of ourselves. And I'd like to specify that the faithfulness is uncapitalized because there are no lies within faith. Faith is present, no BS required. I just am. Connected, present, here, not there, here. There need be no cross we carry there if we choose to be here instead. The T of the cross on there of an outside of now moment disappears. And what is there then if fear and faith are fighting and we decide to rift with what feels most fun? And then we access the one that is the creator and the artist of the life that we came here to live and lead responsibly, to take account of that which we are indeed here to be the lawful stewards of, the land, air, and water. For heir of the air is spelt the same way as an heir of an HEIR. For the heirs of the kingdom are dumbed down by the king that doesn't want them to know how powerful they are. So, uses menticide to systematically dumb down the populace. So there are fewer ants that are able to step up. But do you remember that scene in The Bug's Life? When Flick, the entrepreneurial one, the crazy one, the one that everyone was so angry with because of how his chaotic nature actually disturbed the whole colony unnecessarily, for it hadn't proved fruitful or profitable. Until it did. When the grasshoppers were coming to bully in order to steal, rape, and pillage from the colony, and the Flick was rallying the hearts of those who were hopeless until Flick said, no, we can step up. There are so many more of us than them. Sound familiar? Yeah, predictive programming and black magic work where the plan has to be told to us, but it doesn't have to be told exactly as if. Because if a joker comes in to tell the rift, then we laugh and get sunk. Hook, line, and sinker. Don't let that, though, be the stinker that had us lose access to the trust that holds the equity that we can access if we're willing to call ourselves into wholeness, instead of just only the hues of mankind, which is why transhumanism is part of the agendas that are dangerous to the soul, because it would want to make us incorporated into the soul corporate, which has many dummy corps or shell corporations to cover for the fact they cannot operate independently of the Vatican. We can all get stuck in the vat of if we don't remove our equity by claiming it lawfully and requiring any man or woman to contest our claim, otherwise it stands within a lawful time period, for that is honorable. And this is what we must get back to being: honorable, able to have honor and be honorable, like the warriors of old. Well, dude, we're it. Maximus, I know, my love. He wants to go outside because he says, it is time for me to go and kill things in the dark or have adventures. I don't quite know what he will do, but what I do is that his inner web must be strong, because every night he goes off on his own into the dark in order to roam and have fun and do what he does. And then he comes back to be fed in the morning. And it seems like quite the good hustle. So I shared with you the dark night of the soul in relation to the descansos and the phase of liminality between life as we knew it and life as we'll know it after the transformation of self-image takes place through the valley of transformation we go into when we accept the call after meeting the one that believed in us enough for us to say, hun, I think I can do it. Cheers, let's do it. That nervous is the way that we say we'll never know if we don't go. And on our deathbeds, it's never the opportunities that didn't work out necessarily so much as the ones we never took that we would never know because we didn't go. So that's why it is so vitally important to our inner WEBS health for us to take opportunities to connect with like-minded and like-hearted people, but not about BS, because I believe we have become a culture that is so connected to the mind, which comes back to humanism, you'll find. Now, humanism actually removes the existence of anything that can't be explained by rationality, reasonability, and science. Does that science have a dollar sign for the S? I don't know. But what I do know is that all dogma is the bitch that gets backed into the corner and bites when it needs to be defended. And what's worse is that when we have inherited belief systems that truly do serve as BS within our realm, when we realize we've inherited these belief systems and someone else challenges them, oftentimes we feel we have no choice but to defend our territory and turf because there's no one else around left to do it. And so we'll do it, just as let whoever did it before us know that we carried on in their stead. But did you ever hear about the newly married couple that were baking a roast one night and the new wife cut off the end and threw it out? And this husband was like, honey, what are you doing? There was lots of great meat on there. Why did you just throw that out? And she said, well, this is what my mom always did. And so then they called to find out why. I'm getting a phone call. They called the mother to find out why she cut it off. And she said, oh, well, mom always did that. So that's how I always did it. And so then they called the grandma and invited her for dinner so they would find out once and for all why all of them cut the end of the roast off. And so when dinner came, they were all around the table. And so they asked the grandmother of the bride why she always cut off the end and taught her daughter to do that, who then taught her daughter to do the same. And the grandmother was confused for a moment and then laughed hysterically. And when she could finally collect herself, without crying at the amount of lost meat over the years, she declared that her husband and her had received a baking pan for their wedding gift that was not big enough for a full roast, so the end had to be cut off to make room for what pan size they had. Nothing to do with the meat. That was good meat that got thrown out just because that was the way it was always done, and so that was the way it was continued to be done. Isn't that fun? I thought it was a good story. So I wanted to give the glory not to him, as in Hymn, of the universal one song we're all singing a verse along to. I want to actually talk about the fact energetic baggage and fears based on past life issues connect to the soul realignment work I've done since 2013, that I haven't been working with people privately in order to resolve these issues, but now I'm seeing how what we've got playing out energetically, emotionally, with all of the insanity of the certificate of VEX, Identity Death AI experiment, that COVID-19 has been. I'll repeat my definition if you've not heard it. I think it's neat. Certificate of Vex Identity Death, AI, for the 1 and 9 being translated alphabetically as numbers. So the Certificate of Vex Identity Death killed life as we knew it before it, and then made it so that we've all been just wanting to connect with people that get it. And what I really want to strongly urge us to consider on this Friday the 13th of October in 2023, when we sit as the Magi's who can be, the ones that say, we were there for that story. We were there when it was written. That is our story that we are writing now. And so I believe, because the predictive programming requires the telling of those who will be harmed, that it will be done to them. So then there is plausible deniability for the perpetrators, who can say, I was just fulfilling an order, when that order caused serious harm or loss to another because of the fraud in the first place that is being given the nod by the professionals. That it is not okay to continue carrying on that way, because if we lose our soul for the sake of gaining the world, what was the point? I'm pretty sure a popular book says something along those lines. And I find it very poignant and significant for the times that we're in, based on how we are willing to see the sin of syntax. What is syntax? Do you know? You must not be able to leave comments. Otherwise, I'm sure those who are here would do so. But maybe not. You never know. And if you hit too many buttons, then sometimes you can just screw it up, and then that's not good either. So I'll just hope I didn't mess anything up and say, I'll have to find out why I can't see what anyone has said if you have. Oh, Maximus. You may say I'm a dreamer. Oh, but I'm not the only one. Nothing is impossible. Nothing, because we are possible. I am possible. My claims are the man and woman I am seeing. Listen to me now. I hope you are doing great. So I had to get the cat out because he's a super whiny one. And drama interferes with the flow, because there's attention seeking that captures you away from what you need to do. So she believed she could, so she did. And on the inside, it says, you've got this. So to be fully honest, in terms of an outline for today, I wrote down some questions and I wrote down some concepts. And I was mentioning soul realignment, which is accessing the Akashic records to find blocks and restrictions within your Akashic records, which are like the energetics database your soul has, that contains all your soul's choices for all time, because all time is happening now if we aren't in our mind. And so those blocks and restrictions are basically the root issues and then symptomatic issues that come from the root issue. And it's interesting because I want to go back to the descansos, because my mind just flipped scenes. Does yours ever do it like that? I'm trying to say, like, this is a very unscripted kind of production because I'm rifting based on the flow of the energy and going where I'm called to next, and energetically, emotionally, that sometimes shifts and switches tracks, and then it's catching back up where I was before without missing a beat too much. And then some would say, okay, Laura, let it seep in. Give a little space once in a while, more so than what I do, which would offer more grace to those who are literally trying to keep up. And I've had people say, no one wants to run with someone that always outpaces them. So I'm sorry if that is the case. I don't mean to run fast. I am a rabbit by Chinese astrology by nature. So I do go fast. And then I come back and it's like, here, pass it on. And so I do my best to play the way that I feel I can be of greatest service. What I'm asking is for us all to do our part by simply playing our own life as if it were the last day that we were going to be able to play the way that we are. For us to be able to decide what it means to live a life worth living and loving, and then actually enjoy the experience of living and loving that life. It's time for us to see there is a death cult, which is what the fear of false emotion appearing real will drive us towards if we're staying in our mind. And then in the realm of time, that takes us out of the pre-sent now moment, where we stop resenting that which was sent and not resolved the first time. So then we have to solve it a second time with greater force and momentum because of everything else energetically that is accumulated with the energy and motion that was suppressed and pressed down, and then starts to congeal and work together in order to hold all of that shared energy to be released. And then, the big orgasm of creative expression and expulsion and explosion. And I'm thinking German New Medicine because Jordy always talks about how you have the resolution, which is like the eruption of pleasure that actually makes us feel unwell, because afterwards it's just like you do have a lower energy because you've just moved a lot of energy really quickly. So German New Medicine is a phenomenal methodology that I have not plugged into the depth that is required for me to understand it. But Jordy Lishman really has over the last 15 years. And so in one of the recent videos I posted of the first docu-series that doesn't have all of the sizzle reel at the beginning and the intro and all of the professionalism, which I do need to get to the point of putting together. But as a one-woman show doing all of what I do on my own, at this point, I'm giving myself grace and simply saying I'm putting them out and doing 1 hour per week so that then you can see what's going on in my realm as we move towards the Remembering Day on November 11th. That's where we're going to have a casting call for us to play ourselves authentically with others who are doing the same, and it'll be recorded. And so instead of watching all of these other characters in the reality series, why not just actually bring it home and then start being the characters that are the metaphoric Game of Thrones leads within the manners of that realm and show, but indeed we're actually doing it in the real realm, which is why real is an acronym that I am working on bringing into the cultural training program that is being created as we set the foundation for how culture is going to look moving forward. And then we also recognize cult is at the foundation of culture. So everyone that is terrified or against cults, I appreciate where you're coming from, but there is a misnomer in thinking that there is the ability to have a culture without a cult, because it's literally built into the word. So it's the cult you are that is the culture that you identify with, and then you see the 1D identity When you identify with something, entify means to bring form to a mental construct. So to identify with something that you mentalized is to actually be the creator that brings into manifestation that which was in the mind and the etheric of realm of energy, until then you find your hand able to apply the material into the form that contains the substance you saw in your mind, and now it's here in real time, and you say, wow, I created that, it's my creative baby. So that is a fun way to describe the creative process, I believe. And I just want you to really consider how you could be applying your creative skills to actually show up and create that life you love living. To start at your local community, and to also see that whole notion of be the change you seek in this world. What if we actually realized that world is multidimensional, because we have a world with every single identity that we take on. If you are a parent, you have a school world, you have a work world, you have a family world, you have, your own family, you've got in-laws, you've got outlaws, you've got all of the ways that we interact with community. We have all of these different relationships, and every single relationship requires a different identity, which requires a different mask or persona, which our emotions actually show up wearing. Why we show up in a different state and we seem like a completely different person when we're in one mood compared to another is because our emotions are literally different expressions of a hue of us instead of the whole of us. So we literally don't have access to all parts of our ability to create when we are only in one state. When we are in one state of reactivity, we can't access our creativity in the same way, because we're down at a level lower in the high rise of emotional awareness than what allows us to see from the penthouse of possibility. How beautiful the fresh air and the clear skies and the beauty in the distance, as well as the noise and congestion of the city that can be quite beautiful if you're high above it and yet can still walk through it without being become by it. So the high rise of emotional awareness takes us to the penthouse of possibility, which is where joy, peace, and the ability to be authentically ourselves, to enjoy and enjoy the process of living and enjoying the now. That experience isn't even accessible or a concept in this mind of someone living on the streets, or the first couple floors that just look up and live in the shadows of those higher level emotions, and then get startled and terrified by those higher level emotions because it's calling you to then step into some form of you that would reach higher too. So when we do aspire to be more than we were before we climbed higher in the spiral staircase of awareness, we start to see it's not a circle. Karma, that bitch, oh yeah, it's not a circle. It's a spiral going higher and higher in terms of our awareness and the ability to see the problem from a different perspective. It's like Scott Fay, who was the vice president of the John Maxwell team back in 2011 when I started as a founding partner in the program. He used to use the analogy of a beach ball, where if you have a six-sided beach ball that has different colors every other color, you have white in between, and then the colored, and you throw it to someone opposite me, and then we all grab the beach ball and then describe what we can see from our vantage point. We describe only the color in front of us, which might be yellow, pink, or blue. But the one who is looking at it from a higher vantage point can see all three of those colors plus the white in between, and see it's all part of the same beach ball, when someone looking only just at their one part might say it's part of something entirely different. They might claim that one color is the whole thing compared to just only the aspect of it or part of it. And this is what we have to see, is the incorporating of our energy into the machine of the counterfeit reality the legal fiction is based on, which actually goes back once again to humanism, which excludes the possibility of something outside of ourselves, a higher power that cannot be put into explainable terms, such as supernatural, occult, or all of these different terms that are completely out of the realm of normality. Those descriptors remove the possibility of defining that which is being stated, which makes sense given you can't weigh it, and yet you can't say it doesn't exist, because without it, we don't, as we knew ourselves to be before the identity of the soul spark or God spark inside of each of us leaves the incarnated vessel. Then the vessel is no longer operable. It requires the soul, which is the energy of the creator of all that resides within each of us. I don't know where specifically it sits within the body. I have a feeling it's in the higher heart or the upper heart. But I know that it connects in with the pineal gland, which actually is the third eye, and it is about the light that comes from the chakras, because there is alignment and activation that is required in order for the light to climb with it up to the pineal gland. And yet, however closer to the sun we get, the longer our shadow, and we've got to walk backwards through all of the carnage that we didn't deal with before too. So we need to be able to survive ourselves, is another little piece and tidbit I say as a word of caution as you maneuver through the valley of transformation, because it's very dangerous to be walking through all of that which you didn't know how to face before, and now suddenly have to be, because you're confronted with it and there's no walking around it. Oh man. So this has been a whole lot. I've went in a bunch of different directions. And ultimately, what I was going to say when I shared about how random this message is the fact that I could have easily put this off until next week. I could have easily said, because I don't have the branding, I'm not going to post the first or second episode of the docu-series that I posted on Sunday, the 3rd of April or October. And then I posted on my birthday, the 10th of October. I posted the second episode of the docu-series. So there's 2 hours of footage that I've went back into my vlog library of over 1,000 videos on my channel here. And then I've also recorded new video footage of the life that I'm actually living in real time now, and then pieced those together without necessarily discerning the difference. But you should be able to tell, and if you can't, then, well, that's okay too. But yeah, basically, if I waited for things to be perfect, this would not be happening right now. And so I'm curious what this means to you and what it means for you and what you're going to do with it. And I see that the battery is getting really low and we've got 9 minutes to go. So I'm going to plug in my computer so that it doesn't die on us or interrupt us as we round out these 9 minutes. And I say that I shared that because practice doesn't just lead to perfection. It often leads to paralysis, where we get so afraid that we're not going to be perfect, that we don't actually do it. And we think that somebody else is more polished, and we think that somebody else could do it better. And we think that, who are we to do it? You know, Marianne Williamson's poem, Our Deepest Fear? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, talented, gorgeous, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. You were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within you. It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. It is when we let our own light shine, our presence unconsciously liberates others to do the same. So I paraphrased that at the end specifically. But I did get permission from Marianne to use that poem in Fully Committed, which I am so grateful for her permission and support for Fully Committed. So if you don't have my book already, I do have signed copies. I don't have ready access to them without getting up right now to go grab a book. But what I do know is that if you have taken the time to listen to this message tonight and found it valuable, you will find significant value in Fully Committed. And I am working on the companion manual to go with it, which is what this podcast episode and the series that go with it is designed to work around, as well as the Sunday podcast or the Sunday, what are they? The docu-series that I'm putting out. Like, it's not perfect, guys. I know. But if I don't put it out, then like you're missing out. And if you're not creating and you're consuming someone else's content, why not make it mine? Right? I haven't wanted to capitalize on people's time, energy, effort, attention, and money because I just didn't want to waste anyone's time or any of the other energetic resources I just mentioned within that team. And yet there are so many people that are willing to and extort a tremendous value in order to do it. And the people are screwed in the end and they're profited. I have never been able to go with that, which has meant I've lost out on a lot of opportunities. And I felt really awkward about opportunities where I didn't do my best and I could have done better. And I learned from that experience and will do better because that experience helped me gain access to contrast that helped me see with clarity what I do want instead of the contrast that I don't want, that I experienced then and want to say, okay, next time, this is the preference. Because the universe is like a cosmic kitchen, which we are continually ordering from. So imagine whatever it is that you desire to give birth to, siring children, these are your creative babies. Whatever creative baby you really want to sire in this world, recognizing there are multiple different worlds all happening simultaneously. So being the change you seek in this world means, hey, just focus on your home life. That's one world, your family life, the people that you live with immediately. What if you just focused on being a good being in the midst of them, with them? Like you, instead of being a drain, you were an uplifter. What if you just focused on your immediate world? You know, that is a really great place to start. And then you've already won, because if the people around you are happier, your environment is happier, cleaning and tidying things up to move the energy, all of these things are very helpful. But I did go off on a little bit of a side trail that took me away from what I was going to say, which happens more than I would like to say. But what I know is that I don't beat myself up for it when I go off track. And I am acting as an example to you, for you. Because if we beat ourselves up and then hold ourselves back and try to be perfect and get it right, and, you know, when do we actually get started? We don't know how long we have. None of us do. And if we don't know how long we get to be the crown of victory wearers in these realms, if we don't know. When I did a DMT ceremony in early 2019, one of 8 that completely cracked me open, and then I lost the box and I didn't even know how to fit back in. I didn't know where the box was. I was like, what? All of that experience. And one of these DMT ceremonies, I distinctly remember the experience of the drone noise. It was like this noise and this energy that just came up and around, and it was like, holy shit, we are the gladiators in the field. Like, we're in the Roman Colosseum right now. We are literally in the Roman Colosseum right now, and I trace the story of Rome back to its roots. That Rowan Lorien and Romilly Stewart put together as the Justinian deception, and then I unpacked and broke down into the Justinian connection that I published to my website in March with little attention. Few people were interested or cared, and it was very disheartening. However, I pressed on, and I just finished, before I went up for all the festivals, to create the Ode to Laurelise, which is the language the people can lease, which is the language of victory the people can lease, in order to use the language of energy to understand the multidimensional nature of reality, and to see that we must be the truth tellers of our own lives by actually deciding to live honorably, and to also put every man, woman, and other on notice in their private capacity. Harm or loss caused to another, whether an imposition made because of an order or not, it is the choice of the public servant to fulfill the order or command that causes harm, should they wish to. Once they've been put on notice in their private capacity that the man or woman being harmed or threatened knows their rights, claims their rights, and is now protected in writing. Once that happens, all suits are off, which means you can't be protected by the umbrella liability insurance that a corporation offers those who are wearing the suit, statuses, titles, and personages of the role that you take on and wear in the corporation. Once you're on notice in your private capacity, that public position is no longer covered. So I believe that's how we turn this whole ship around. And I want to break this down in a way that helps us weave stronger inner webs more intentionally, that are going to support us in developing a stronger self-worth, self-esteem, self-belief, and inner security. So if you agree, please do leave a comment to let me know. If you don't, leave a comment and let me know. And show me what makes you say yay or nay either way. And then we can play at a higher level, because if we start sharing resources, seeing the sources that are being recirculated every time we research something and search source again to find resources, the reason we go through all of this is to find the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and then see how it is the Holy See that spears it and turns us into third persons, parties in our own affairs, that are stories lived by us who can tell testimony, not affidavits. So we're going to get into that next Friday. I am uncertain as to whether it will be at 7 p.m. again or earlier on in the day, but I will let you know sooner, because on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am looking forward to a Zoom connection with some of those warriors that I believe need to know who one another are as we go and grow and glow together. So I look forward to reading the comments. I appreciate you for showing up tonight, and want to say have an amazing day. Lord J.